Hey, for Monday, August 17th, 2020, this is the Pro and Con Show, and I'm your host, Michael James Ott. And as always, thanks for watching the show. Here we go. All right, so as always, the intent is try to promote people thinking a little bit more, being more proactive, and especially about seeking out, understanding and the truth. Okay, and the factual kind of stuff, the who, the what, the where, and the when. And deciding for ourselves based on, the moral structure of our lives, what that means to us, but not listening to all these screaming heads that tell us what to think, okay, that label us and tell us to hate other people and mistrust them and stuff like that, which gets me to the title of today's show, Trust. Trust. So this is an interesting thing. For several years, I was a manager in a business, and I had hiring responsibility for some of that period of time, and interviewing potential new employees. And I would ask them about rather than the standard questions about tell me about yourself and stuff like that, I would ask them, well, do you consider yourself to be a friendly person? And I'd hear that response. And then, they'd say something. And then I'd say, well, okay, so you have friends. And there'd be some response. And I'd say, do you have some friends that you feel are closer to you than other friends? And invariably, they would say yes, and I'd say, how many close friends do you think you would say you had? And to me, that would tell me something, because if they said it was a few, anything from 1 or 2 to 5, 6, or 10, then I would say, at least in my view, they probably have some good understanding of what a closer friend should be. And then I would say, what are the attributes of these friends that, the closer ones, the ones that you consider, your closest friends, what attributes separates them from, other friends or other people? And the right answer, at least in my view, in my personal experience, is trust. Your closest friends, you trust them. Now, what goes into trust? Think about that, please, because the reason why I mention that is we're going through this election cycle, and some number of people talk about, Mr. Trump. And they say we like him because we think we can trust him. And so I want you to, if you happen to be one of those people, or if you're going to be speaking to one of those folks, I would like you to think about that some. Think about yourself and like the people that are close to you, your close friends, and what sort of things do they do that causes you to grow your trust for them? So certainly one of the things that does apply to that, okay, is you can count on someone that you trust to kind of speak their mind, right? To say, this is, truly what I think, okay? And I get it. That is for sure one element that would cause people to trust, okay? To know that you're getting, the so-called straight shooter. And so Mr. Trump does, in fact, whatever's in here comes out here. There's very little filter there, okay? And most of the time, whatever's rolling around in here is coming out here. All right, I get that. But then what are the other things that people do other than telling you what's in here that cause you to trust them? Well, you know that they're consistent, somewhat consistent in their approach and in their viewpoint, and their view doesn't just instantly change even though the information is the same. They don't just flip and flop all over the place. And this is where Mr. Trump, it's one of the attributes that he fails at. If you were to look at a list of why would you trust what someone, okay, well, it says what's in their head. Okay, I can kind of get that. But the next one is there's no consistency in it. And in fact, he flip-flops depending on whoever he's speaking with. And I tell you, in your own personal relationships, if you had a friend and they were always flip-flopping all the time on their viewpoints, you would not trust them. Okay? And then some other things about Mr. Trump that, again, if you pay attention, he, bashes people. Anybody that does not say that they like him, he immediately turns on them. Okay? And in a huge way, he publishes all kinds of stuff in Twitter and so on. So just imagine again, if this is your close friend and you told them something that they didn't want to hear and they turned on you and said all these horrible things just because you were being truthful and honest with them. Would you? That's another thing. No, you would not trust them. You would not trust them. Okay? And then, the other thing that you would look at is how consistent have they been over their lifetimes. And again, this is a place where Mr. Trump fails. He's been, a Democrat, an independent, a Republican. He has, contributed money to, lots of people that he now bashes all the time. There's just this whole rolling thing of him and his inconsistency, which a lot of people call lying, because honestly, that's one of the appropriate labels for someone that's constantly saying different stuff all the time. They're lying, okay? And then the last thing is, if you pay attention and you listen to the people that know him the longest, people that worked with him in New York City, New York State over the period of decades, they will tell you that he has been, he's had a really bad reputation for doing what he says he's going to do, especially in regard to, for example, contractors that work for Mr. Trump. There's especially some of the smaller contractors, they have had a big issue with getting paid, and it's because Mr. Trump has a tendency to say, well, I don't have to pay you because you're too small. You can't fight me. I will just have a lawyer sue you over something rather, and because I have the financial resources and you don't, you're just going to back down and go away. And this has been a thing that he's done repeatedly for years and years. So again, another element of people that don't trust him, and if you had a friend or if you had a person in your life that you kind of considered to be a friend and you're wondering if they are thinking of them as being a closer friend, but if there were lots of other people around them that said, oh, watch out for this person, they're not very trustworthy, you can't deal with them in a business setting, for example, they are unreliable, then this is another thing where you would say, I don't trust them. And the whole reason why I do this show, this particular show on trust, is because Mr. Trump maybe hits one element of what people normally would do for trust, and then you have to turn a blind eye to all the other things that people normally would have to do to be trustworthy, okay, to earn your trust. And so those of you out there that, when you're asked why would you vote for Mr. Trump, and you say, because I trust him, do you really? And should you really? Are you paying enough attention? Are you being a good citizen? And I would argue, food for thought for you, that you are not. Because Mr. Trump is not trustworthy by most people's standards, including yours, if you take the time to really think about it. For the Pro and Con Show, my name is Michael James Ott, and until the next show, bye for now.